G'day, my name is Billy Crothers. I used to be a heroin and cocaine addict for more than 25 years. My addiction would cost me more than $2,000 a day, and I supported my habit by selling at least $60,000 worth of heroin a week. My addiction, plus 5 years in jail, isolated me from my family, not having any contact for 25 years. In 1999, I received the news that my elderly parents were sick, so I decided to make the trip from Sydney to Perth to see them for one last time. This was a journey that was going to change my life forever. It was a 4-day journey from Sydney to Perth by bus. I'd made arrangements with my heroin dealer to buy some heroin for the trip, but the meeting had fallen through, so I had to travel without any heroin. Due to the prolonged use of heroin, I couldn't find any more veins in my arms, so I started using the veins in my legs. About 12 hours into the trip, I started going through withdrawals and my foot started to swell, not realising that I had a blood clot in my leg. All I knew, I was in so much pain. By the time I arrived in Perth, my big toe had turned blue and I could not walk. I contacted my parents and I was told to stay away and they didn't want to see me. The next day I made my way to Royal Perth Hospital where I was diagnosed with gangrene and they would have to amputate my big toe. After spending 2 weeks in hospital, I was discharged so they could make arrangements and find a bed for my operation. For the next 2 weeks I was living at the Salvation Army hostel. Not having any heroin for a month, the day before my operation I made my way to Northbridge on crutches in search of heroin for one last shot. Not knowing anyone in Northbridge, I seen 2 ladies coming towards me. And straight away I thought, oh no, Christians, get away from here. These 2 ladies were in Northbridge doing some evangelism work. Their name was Hetty and Barbara, and they saw that I was on crutches and I couldn't run away. I tried scaring them away by telling them that I was a drug addict and I was going in the hospital the next day to have my toe cut off. This didn't scare them away. They shared the gospel with me and prayed for me and told me they were going to visit me in hospital, which they did. 4 days after my operation, my whole foot had turned black and the doctors had made arrangements to have the rest of my foot cut off the next morning. As this was on a Sunday, I'd rang Hetty and asked could she take me to her church. She came and picked me up that day and took me to the church in a wheelchair where I had about 1,000 people pray for me. Asking for a miracle that day was the first day I'd ever prayed to God. The next day I was prepared for surgery and the doctors were amazed when I unwrapped the bandages off my foot. My foot had turned back to its normal colour. The surgery was cancelled. The doctor said it was a miracle and I was healed. After I was discharged from hospital, I would follow Hetty to church every Sunday and 2 months later I was water baptised. Since giving my life to God, I have been drug-free for the last 8 years. 2 years after arriving in Perth, I had the opportunity of meeting my parents before they died. I enjoy working with horses and have spent the last 5 years working at a riding school in Claremont. I am also a volunteer at Riverview Church, serving complimentary tea and coffee with Hetty. God has radically changed my life. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the day God had sent those 2 ladies to Northbridge to save me. I love this verse in Romans chapter 8, which says, "Therefore, there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus."